Welcome to Epic Story Recaps. Our story starts in the long ago time of 1985. Meet Marty McFly, a rock and roll kid with attitude. Marty gets a call from Doc Brown, who tells him to meet him at the Twin Pines Mall at precisely 1:15 in the morning. Suddenly all of Doc's clocks ring at the same time. Marty is shocked to find out that Doc set them 25 minutes late. He is late for school. Marty hops on his skateboard and makes a beeline for school, with a little help from random automobiles. Marty skates past a re-elect Mayor Goldie Wilson poster. Jennifer, Marty's girlfriend, tries to help him avoid Principal Strickland, but it doesn't work. Strickland catches them and hands out tardy slips. Strickland takes a special glee in giving Marty a hard time. He tells Marty that no McFly ever amounted to anything and none ever will. Marty's band, the Pinheads, auditions. Jennifer thinks they are totally radical, but Huey Lewis has the final say, and he thinks they are just too darn loud. A re-elect Mayor Goldie Wilson van drives by. As Marty vents about the Pinheads being rejected, Marty doesn't know how much more rejection he can take. Jennifer encourages him. Marty sees a mid-'80s Toyota truck and acts like it's the second coming. He tells Jennifer that someday. Jennifer asks Marty if his mom knows they are planning on going to the lake this weekend, but Marty tells her that his mom never did anything like that and wouldn't understand. An old lady asks for a donation to the Save the Clock Tower Society. She explains that 30 years ago lightning struck the clock tower and it hasn't worked since. Marty gives the old bat a quarter to make her go away. She gives Marty a flyer. Jennifer writes her grandma's number on the back of the flyer 'cause that's where she'll be tonight. Marty returns home to the run-down Lyon Estates to find the car that he planned on using to take Jennifer to the lake is wrecked. Marty enters his house to find his dad, George McFly, being bullied by his coworker, Biff. This Biff guy is a real piece of work. He wrecks George's car, makes George do his work reports, and drinks his beer. Marty's dad, George, is less of a man and more of a bowl of Jell-O. The rest of Marty's family is little better. His brother works at Burger King, who knows what his sister does, if she does anything at all, and his mother is an alcoholic. She is sad because her brother was denied parole. Seems he is behind bars. Marty's mom Lorraine recalls how she met George. He was bird watching and her dad almost ran him over. She had a case of Florence Nightingale syndrome. She fell in love with George because he was a wounded bird. They shared their first kiss at the Enchantment Under the Sea dance, and the rest was history. Marty meets Doc at the Twin Pines Mall at 1:15 a.m., and then it happens. He lays eyes on the time machine. Doc Brown built a time machine out of a DeLorean. Marty films Doc with a giant 80s camcorder. He tells Marty that once the DeLorean hits 88 miles per hour it travels through time. Doc inputs the date November 5th, 1955 into the DeLorean. For you see, that is when Doc first came up with the idea for the flux capacitor and time travel. Doc explains that the DeLorean needs nuclear reaction to generate the electricity needed for time travel. He stole the plutonium from Libyan nationals who wanted him to build them a bomb. Doc prepares to head to the future, but just then the Libyan nationals arrive. They fill Doc's belly full of lead and chase Marty, who hops in the DeLorean and inadvertently hits 88 miles per hour while trying to escape the terrorists. Marty is sent back in time to 1955. The mall reverts to the Peabody farm and Marty crashes the DeLorean into the Peabody barn. He barely escapes with his life as Farmer Peabody tries to shoot him thinking he is an alien. Marty runs over a pine tree as he gets away. He drives by his neighborhood and sees that it isn't developed yet. The DeLorean stops running, so Marty hides it behind a billboard. Marty is astonished by his hometown. It is both familiar and strange. The gas station gives incredible service. The record store doesn't have any Duran Duran, and the clock tower that was struck by lightning all those years ago, it still works. Marty goes into a diner to call Doc, but he's not home. He takes a seat, but doesn't notice he is sitting next to the high school version of his dad. The high school version of Biff enters and starts bullying George, who agrees to do Biff's homework. Biff warns George not to go in the diner again. Marty can't believe he's sitting next to his dad. The busboy tells George to stand up for himself. He says he is going to make something of himself one day. Marty blurts out that Goldie will one day be the mayor of Hill Valley. His boss says that people will never vote for a colored mayor, but Goldie isn't discouraged. George rides off and Marty follows him. He sees that his dad is a peeping Tom. George falls out of the tree. Marty pushes him out of the way of a car and is struck unconscious. Marty wakes up in a darkened room calling for his mother. She comforts him because he had a nightmare about traveling into the past. She turns the lights on and it's his mom, all right. His mom when she was 17 years old in 1955. She is infatuated with Marty the way she should have been infatuated with George. She has taken off Marty's clothes, and since he is wearing Calvin Klein underwear, she thinks his name is Calvin. She flirts with him relentlessly. Marty has dinner with his grandparents and their children. His grandmother introduces him to his Uncle Joey, who is a baby in a crib. He is the uncle that had his parole denied. Marty tells him to get used to the bars. Ouch. Lorraine, Marty's mom, keeps trying to grab his leg under the table. Marty gets out of there. Marty goes to Doc's house. Doc notices that in Marty's picture, his brother's hair is cut off. He doesn't believe Marty is from the future. Who would? Marty convinces him by recounting the story Doc told him in the future about how he hit his head and first thought of the flux capacitor. This convinces Doc that Marty is telling the truth. Doc and Marty retrieve the DeLorean. Doc hatches a plan to use the lightning that they know is going to hit the clock tower to power the DeLorean and send Marty back to the future. Doc tells Marty that he can't leave the house because he could damage the future by changing the past. Doc asks Marty if he interacted with anyone today. Marty says just his parents. Doc looks at Marty's picture of his brother and sister. His brother's head is gone. He is being erased from existence. Doc and Marty head to Hill Valley High School. Doc explains that Marty interfered with his parents' meet cute, therefore his brother, sister, and finally Marty himself will cease to exist unless Marty can get his parents to fall in love with each other. They find George being harassed by Strickland, just the way he harassed Marty. Marty tries to introduce George to Lorraine, but Lorraine only has eyes for Marty. Doc tells Marty to make sure he gets them to the Enchantment Under the Sea dance because that is where they first kissed. Marty is surprised to learn that his dad fears rejection too. George writes science fiction, but he doesn't let anyone read it because he's afraid they might not like it. No matter what Marty does, George can't get him to ask Lorraine to the dance. Marty gets an idea. He puts on his radiation suit and sneaks into George's room. He tells George that he is Darth Vader from the planet Vulcan. He warns George that he must ask Lorraine out or he will melt George's brain. Marty takes his mom to the dance and expects her to be offended when he asks to park his car and make out with her, but she isn't offended. She's into it. She busts out some hooch and lights a ciggy. All of this shocks Marty. Lorraine forces a kiss on Marty, but it feels wrong to her. She doesn't understand, but she knows it's wrong. It feels like kissing her brother. Someone interrupts them, but it's not George, it's Biff. Lorraine is attacked by Biff while the gang beats up Marty. They throw him in the trunk of the band's car. George rushes to save Lorraine from Marty, but finds Biff in the car. Lorraine begs for help. Biff tells George to get lost, which he refuses to do. Biff twists his arm. The band tries to get Marty out of the trunk. They get him out, but the guitarist hurts his hand in the process. Marty rushes back to help his mom. Lorraine tries to help George, but Biff pushes her down. George feels a rage building up inside him. He punches Biff and knocks him out. Just as Marty gets there, George asks Lorraine if she is okay as he helps her up. Lorraine looks at him with love in her eyes. Marty looks at his picture. His brother is totally gone and his sister is halfway gone. He rushes back to the band and begs them to play, but they can't because the guitarist has hurt his hand. Marty steps in and plays guitar so his parents can have their first kiss. He looks at the picture and his sister is totally gone. Lorraine asks if George is going to kiss her, but George is scared. A soulless ginger cuts in and Marty starts to fade from existence. George starts to walk away, but somehow he finds the courage and pushes the ginger away from Lorraine and lays a big sloppy wet kiss on her. Marty stops fading. The picture of his siblings is restored. Marty plays a little Johnny Be Good and then heads off to meet Doc at the clock tower. Marty is so impressed with his dad. Doc is worried that he might have changed the future, but the picture is restored so he says nothing. Marty hugs Doc and slips the letter warning him about the Libyans into Doc's pocket, but Doc discovers it and rips it up. Marty is about to tell him, but the wind unplugs the cable. Doc runs up the clock tower and Marty reattaches the rope to the plug. Doc pulls it up to reattach it. Just as Marty is about to tell Doc about the future, the clock gong starts gonging. Marty must get in the DeLorean. Doc makes his way to the unplugged cable. Marty sets up the time machine and changes the time when he will get back to the future to give himself time to warn Doc. Marty tries to start the car, but it stalls. Doc reaches for the plug as the ledge crumbles underneath him. One of the cables snags on his pant leg. Marty gets the car to start. Doc tries to plug the cables together, but they won't reach. Doc pulls, and the cable comes loose on the ground. Marty speeds towards destiny. Time is running out. Doc sees Marty. He plugs the top one in and rides a cable down to the ground just in time to plug the ground cable in. Marty hits the wire as the lightning strikes and sends Marty back to the future, leaving a jubilant Doc in a state of wonder and awe. Marty returns to 1985. Hill Valley looks like a slum again and Marty couldn't be happier to be back home. Marty rushes to save Doc, but the car stalls again. The terrorists drive by on their way to get revenge on Doc Brown. Marty races on foot to the Lone Pine Mall. He is too late to save Doc. He rushes to Doc. He thinks Doc is dead, but Doc gets up. He was wearing a bulletproof vest. Doc produces the letter he ripped up. It's taped together. Doc drops Marty off at home. Doc plans on going 30 years into the future. Marty says to look him up when he gets there. Doc goes to the future, and Marty goes to bed. When he wakes up in his bed the next morning, he finds everything has changed at his house. His sister works at a boutique and his brother has a real job. His mom is thin and happy and not a resentful alcoholic. His dad is a strong, confident, happy man who doesn't let Biff rip him off. Biff is an auto detailer, and his dad found the confidence to risk failure and become a published science fiction author. Oh, and his parents are very much in love. Marty is surprised to learn that his dream car, a mid-80s Toyota 4x4, is his. Jennifer stops by and right as he is about to kiss her, Doc comes back from the future. Doc implores Marty and Jennifer to come back to the future with him. Their kids are in trouble and need help. The time machine runs on trash now. They pile into the time machine. Marty warns Doc that they don't have enough road to get up to 88 miles per hour. Doc responds by saying, "Where we're going, we don't need roads." The time machine takes off and flies off into the future. Back to the Future is a classic for a reason, as they would say in 1985. It's totally radical, dude. Some movies don't hold up. They don't transcend time. They eventually appear dated, but not this film. Back to the Future is an all-time classic that holds up. It's as good today as it was in 1985. Thanks for watching Epic Story Recaps.